This book, Surah Al-Kahf, the text translation and commentary, this one, the prohibition of riba in the Quran and Sunnah, prohibition of riba in the Quran and Sunnah, you're going to get. Yeah. Here's George Bernard Shaw and the Islamic scholar, which is a conversation that took place in 1935 in Mombasa. George Bernard Shaw was on board a ship going to South Africa, and he stopped in Mombasa. And when he heard that Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui was there in the city, he requested, I'd like to meet with him. And they met and they had a conversation, and that conversation was recorded. And this is a commentary on that conversation here. This is explaining Israel's mysterious imperial agenda based on the analysis of the Quran, the verses of the Quran and the ahadith of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. This is on Khidr alayhi salam, in search of Khidr's footprints in Akhir al-Zaman. In search of Khidr's footprints in Akhir al-Zaman. You know about Khidr alayhi salam. He is the scholar, the model scholar. This is the model of scholarship for Akhir al-Zaman, Khidr, in which Allah says about him, وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Knowledge does not come to him only from external sources, but also internal. And this is Iqbal and Pakistan's moment of truth, and it is a critical evaluation of the thought of that great scholar who is my teacher as well, Dr. Muhammad Iqbal. May Allah have mercy on his soul. Is a great scholar. We have great admiration for him. But even great scholars can make mistakes. And so we have a critical commentary on his scholarship here pertaining to politics and the state. Okay, here is a book which was published, 20 years ago, on Isra and Miraj. It combines with Ramadan. And this book can be obtained only from Trinidad, And I have not reprinted it as yet. So when you order a complete set, then you'll get this book as well. And you'll get it autographed, inshallah. The gold dinar and silver dirham, Islam and the future of money. And this is a subject in which the world of Islamic scholarship has failed. And I hope you don't mind my saying so. We have love for our brothers, the scholars of Islam. We do not disrespect our brothers, the scholars of Islam. But when they have failed, we have to say so. And we have to warn them that you have failed on the subject of money and the economy and the Islamic banking, this so-called bogus Islamic banking system. Here we are. Medina returns to center stage in Akhir al-Zaman. What is the role of Medina? It used to be Yathrib. In the Quran, the word Yathrib is used. And then after the death of Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, they chose to give it another name, namely Medina, Madinatul Nabi. This one is my old travelogue. I have a new travelogue, which is 2007 to 2008. But this travelogue is for 2001 to 2003. That old travelogue, which you've never seen. And this is available only from Trinidad. The Quranic method of curing alcoholism and drug addiction, if you use the correct methodology for the study of the Quran, which I got from my teacher Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, then you can see how the Quran has given you a method by which you can cure people of addictions. There are many different kinds of addictions. There's addiction to drugs, there's addiction to alcohol, There is addiction to sex, there's addiction to cigarettes, there's lots of addictions. And the problem is, how do you cure someone from addiction? And the answer, you've got to take control of the heart. The heart has to be controlled if you want to cure someone from addiction. But you read that book and you'll get it. Here is a Muslim response to the attack on America, and the attack on America took place in September 2001, and this book was published in December 2001, and I don't regret any word I wrote in this. My analysis was correct. The whole American, the whole people, all those who live in America now, except those who are deaf, dumb, and blind, all recognize what I said in this book is correct. And that is, the attack on America was planned and executed by the CIA and by the Israeli Mossad. This here is the religion of Abraham and the state of Israel. It is an enormous amount of research in this book. And it shows how we are where we are now with the Holy Land. What are the changes which they made in the book of Allah, the Torah, in order to lead us to where we are now with Israel and the Holy Land and the Palestinians. Yeah, the religion of Abraham and the state of Israel. But this book is available only from Trinidad. It was published, I don't know, 20 years ago. Fasting and Power. The previous book I had here, where is it? Yeah. The one on Isra and Miraj has another section on fasting. I took that and I built up this one here, Fasting and Power, to prepare you for the fast of Ramadan, to explain to you that the fast of Ramadan was meant to build power. Here is my first book. My teacher ordered me to write this book, and there's a story of how I wrote this book, and you'll find that story in my travelogue, Islam and Buddhism in the Modern World. It was written by orders of Maulana Fazlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, and he wrote the foreword to this book, and you can read it here, what he says. Here is a lovely book. I'm happy with this book. The strategic importance of dreams and visions in Islam. This is a subject in which we can challenge the secular scholarship and show them that their epistemology is wrong, that knowledge comes only from external observation, the scientific method. Wrong. That knowledge can also come from another source that is externally acquired, and this one is internally received, and that's true dreams and true visions, okay? It's a beautiful book to read, yeah. And here is an old book of mine, The Prohibition of Riba in the Quran and Sunnah, and I'm working on this book now to try to bring it out in a new version as Money, Dajjal and Money. We still have some copies left of this, The Prohibition of Riba in the Quran and Sunnah, but they're only available here in Trinidad. Here is another one from Trinidad, written 20 years ago. One Jamaat, one Amir. One Jamaat, one Amir. How should a Muslim community be organized? This is the first book on Dajjal. I left Malaysia in 2016 and came back to Trinidad to write my book on Dajjal, because people were saying to me, Sheikh, you are the only one who could write this book. And they've been waiting for 10 years. But I could not get the time in Malaysia because too many people coming to visit me, too many lectures, no time at all, none. I couldn't even recite the whole Quran in 1 month in Malaysia until I got fed up. And I took a vow before Allah. I said, I take a vow, I'm going to recite the whole Quran once a month. And since I took the vow, alhamdulillah, I've been able to do it. Allah has given me the time to do it. So I said, let me come back to Trinidad and get the time here to write. And I realized I cannot write one book on Dajjal. No, it has to be several books. So this is the first book. Praise be to Allah that this is written. Dajjal, the Quran, and Awwal Zaman, or the beginning of history. You get a lot of surprises when you read this book on methodology for study of the Quran. This is my first book on eschatology, Jerusalem in the Quran. A very famous scholar, may Allah have mercy on his soul, Dr. Karim Siddiqui. I just visited his grave in Slough, outside of London, who was like an elder brother to me. And he was a very famous political scientist, a great scholar of Islam, living in Britain, Pakistani. And he organized an Islamic conference in London in 1976. And I flew from Pakistan to London to attend that conference. And in between the conference, he sat down with me for a cup of coffee. And then he said to me, Imran, you got the training from Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, and you have political science and international relations. You have to write this book, Jerusalem in the Quran. So he gave me orders to write this book. And alhamdulillah, it took me 27 years, but the book was written. Alhamdulillah, Jerusalem in the Quran. This one, the Caliphate, the Hijaz and the Saudi Wahhabi nation state. This was a chapter of my thesis, my PhD thesis in Geneva on post-Caliphate Islam and the search for a new Islamic public order. But at that time in Geneva, in the 1970s, I did not have eschatology. So thank Allah that I left Geneva without defending that thesis and publishing it, because I would have been embarrassed today. Because my views in that thesis were like a schoolboy really, because I had not yet studied the Quran on that subject properly. And Allah has not blessed me with the knowledge of eschatology. So now I have revised one chapter of that book, which was meticulously researched at the UN Library in Geneva. And here we have the Caliphate, the Hijaz, and the Saudi Wahhabi nation state. This is a book I am so happy that Allah blessed me to write it. Methodology for study of the Quran. If I had this book when I was 20, 21 years of age, if I had this book at that time, I could have traveled faster in the world of knowledge. Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari should have written this book. No, he didn't do it. But he did write the Quranic Foundations and Structure of Muslim Society. It's written in very technical language. And I took what was there in his book, and I took what he taught me, and I gave you this book, Methodology for Study of the Quran. If you are in charge of a Darul Uloom, I urge you, please read this book and put it for your students that they can learn to think and study the Quran the proper way. This is the Islamic travelogue that I spoke about earlier. My travels from 2007 to 2008. And people love to read this, because it's those you're walking with me and traveling with me and seeing things through my eyes. So they would love me to write another travelogue. Sheikh, we love this, but I don't have the time for it. I have more important books to write. So this is the Islamic travelogue. And here is 3 more books. Surah Al-Kahf and the Modern Age. It is my my ta'wil, my interpretation of the very important content of this surah, which is the surah of Akhir Zaman, Surah Al-Kahf. A very important book to read. This is my book on Gog and Magog, an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world. And the scholars don't agree with me. So read what I have to say and listen to what they have to say, and then you make up your mind. And here is a collection of essays over the years on matters pertaining to Akhir Zaman, signs of the last day. It's a big book, huh? Yeah. And those are 20, how much? 25 here. 2 more to make 27. So, this is 26 here. And 2 more to make 28. And they are on their way coming by airmail. One is the Quran, the Great War and the West. That is the Malhama or the Armageddon. It's a small book. And until that book arrives by airmail, I can't autograph a complete set. And then there's my last book, which is entitled Constantinople in the Quran, a delightful little book. And it is on its way from Malaysia.